Hello and welcome to the Allplane Podcast, here with the people that are redefining the future of commercial aviation. As usual, before I introduce today's two guests, let me remind you that you can find all the previous episodes of this podcast as well as many other aviation stories on the Allplane website. That's Allplane.tv, Allplane.tv. As I mentioned, today is one of those episodes in which we have not one, but two top caliber guests. And we are also going to touch upon a topic that is perhaps one of the hottest topics right now in the world, not just in aviation, but in a more general societal way. And that is crypto and how crypto can be used by airlines. Because Tom Hsieh and Lenny Moon are respectively the president and CEO of a California-based startup called FlyCoin, which is a crypto-based loyalty program for airlines and potentially for other partners as well. What's more, both are also in the managerial team of a group of airlines that includes Northern Pacific Airways, which is a new carrier that plans to link the US and Asia via Alaska, and Raven Alaska, which is a regional carrier in that northern state, and Float, which is a new concept of airline, that a commuter airline that will operate inside the LA area with small aircraft. We're going to talk about all this, but basically we're going to talk about FlyCoin. And of course, having all these stable of airlines in the same group, it's going to help to get it off the ground the moment it becomes fully operative. But how does this work in practice? I mean, what are the advantages of a crypto-based loyalty program compared to a traditional one? And how will the average passenger deal with the technicalities of dealing in crypto? We're going to talk about all this and much more in this episode of the podcast. So tune in for a fascinating conversation about airlines and crypto. Hello, Lenny, Tom, how are you?
Doing well.
Right. So we've got two guests today on the podcast. Let me just briefly introduce you. You are both leading a very interesting project, actually several interesting projects related to aviation. One of them is the Northern Pacific Airways project, which I had the chance to attend the launch of recently in California. It's going to be a new airline connecting the US and Asia via Alaska. Then you also run an airline in Alaska called Raven, which was an airline that got relaunched recently. You also are involved in another project in the LA area, which is a commuter airline with light airplanes that hasn't taken off yet, but it's there in the making. And then another project that I found really interesting that we're going to talk about extensively today, which is called FlyCoin, which is basically, as you say, the first blockchain-based loyalty program for airlines. Well, not only for airlines, but you're going to start using it on an airline context. Let's put it this way. But first of all, let me ask you to introduce yourselves and explain who you are and what's your background, because you've got a very, very interesting background in aviation and in other areas of the technology industry. So who wants to start?
I'll kick it off first and then pass it off to Tom. So for everybody in the podcast, this is Lenny Moon. I'm CEO of FlyCoin. In terms of my career, before business school, I worked for about 6 years doing both startups as well as venture capital. So I helped start a SoftBank funded company as part of the original founding team back in 2000. And then also was on the investment side, investing in early stage companies for a couple of years as a venture capitalist. And then after getting my MBA in New York, I became a mergers and acquisitions and M&A investment banker for several years. So I worked on Wall Street, focused primarily on what they call either large cap publicly traded companies or large private equity backed transactions, where I advise companies across a whole spectrum of types of complex transactions. So after several years as an investment banker, I went back into startups or the startup world, and I was an executive at several startups. But for 3 years, which relates to this background with FlyCoin, was I helped grow out a fintech company for 3 years when it was what they call a pre-Series A. So this is when it just had about 8 people, and we hadn't closed, the first Series A round of funding. But I was part of the executive team that helped grow that from just really 8 to 10 people to over 130 people. And since then, I've essentially held various executive roles, primarily CFO and COO roles, helping to grow out startups, as well as doing a couple turnarounds. And then back in August of 2021, I joined as CEO of FlyCoin. And that might be a good segue for Tom to introduce himself because he's the one that actually brought me into this enterprise.
Yeah, indeed. So, Tom, your turn.
Yeah, great. Great to be here. Thanks, Miguel. So my name is Tom Hsieh. I'm the president of FlyCoin. And before starting FlyCoin, I had been involved in a couple of airline startups, as you mentioned. Way back early in my career, I actually started my career working for JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratories, for a little while. And then I went to work for what was then an early startup, internet startup called Earthlink.net.
Yeah, I've seen it on LinkedIn. That was the very first wave of internet companies. So you were
Absolutely.
a very early starter in the internet business.
Exactly, yeah. And when I joined the company, it was pretty early on. The technical team was just 10 engineers and myself, and working out of a converted dentist office. And so I grew up the company. I was eventually acting VP of engineering. So I helped grow that team from that 10 to about 450 engineers nationwide, software engineers, network engineers, systems engineers. And through our company's IPO. So we were one of the early .coms. We were a $1.2 billion IPO. And it was a great ride, being with that company for the first 10 years. When I left that company, we went off and started a number of other businesses and also nonprofits. That's been something that's been very important for my wife and I, is our involvement in our community and in the nonprofit space. And then a few years ago, and back in 2020, had just launched an urban air mobility service to take people to and from work over traffic in LA.
That's Float, right?
That's Float, that's right, which stands for Fly Over All Traffic. Mm-hmm. And we had a very successful first week and a half, having started in March of 2020, and then 2 weeks later we had to put that on pause.
COVID.
Right, because of the pandemic. Yeah. Well, yeah.
So you were flying between the different airports in the LA area, right?
Well, yeah. Most people don't realize that there are 40 general aviation airports in Southern California. That's a lot. I think that's even more than the number of train stations in Southern California. Uh-huh. And if you ever been to LA, it ranks in the top 6 as worst traffic places in the world. And so this was a solution that surprised me that no one had done that before.
Yeah, I actually, when I was in San Bernardino for the launch of Northern Pacific, I had a couple of days off and I drove around the LA area, and I realized how long the distances can be, even if you're still in the LA area, but you can spend hours every day on the road.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, and then during COVID seasons, the traffic is even much worse than you would have experienced. So
I can imagine. Yeah. So now you are leading this project, FlyCoin. This is very closely linked to the 2 airlines that you are also managing, Northern Pacific Airways and Raven. But this is a standalone project, right? So
yes, that's correct.
The idea is that it becomes a loyalty program. It's going to be Northern Pacific's and Raven loyalty program, but the idea is that it can be adopted by other airlines and eventually other partners outside of the airline industry as well, outside the travel industry. So what can you tell me about FlyCoin? What is unique about FlyCoin as a loyalty program? It's blockchain based, built on Ethereum. But for people like me that I have to say I follow the news about crypto and all this, but I'm not an expert. I'm kind of a newbie. I'm trying to make sense of it all from a technological and from a business point of view. Please guide me through the process. I mean, what's unique and how does it work?
Yeah, so I'll start off, and then Tom, feel free to add in. FlyCoin, you're right, exists not just for Raven North Pacific, but then we already are securing partnerships with companies across the travel hospitality industry. It's just helpful, obviously, that we do have affiliated companies that are airlines that we could seed as our initial customers. In terms of FlyCoin and rewards programs in general, the reason why we exist is the travel rewards industry hasn't really progressed over the past, 20, 30, 40 years. Essentially, it acts as some form of program where you receive a discount or you receive, a free ticket. And it's expanded on over the past so many years with additional partnerships with the issuers to potentially redeem it for products, or maybe you can transfer it to, other partners such as other hotel companies, or you can go transfer back and forth between, certain sectors. The problem though is with that sort of model, you still have limitations. The limitations are the reward itself still is something that you don't own. The issuer can decide what the conversion rate is. So they can actually depreciate the value if they want. There's also expiration to these rewards. At any point in time, they give you a little bit of a heads up, and sometimes they extend it, but then they can also expire the rewards, which means that there's nothing you can really do. Furthermore, when you do have the ability to transfer it, you actually lose value when you try to transfer it, between different entities. So for example, if you have 20,000 miles with some airline and you try to transfer it to your hotel points, typically you're going to take a discount whenever you do that. And what also makes it more difficult is you sometimes have to reach certain thresholds before you can even do anything. So you continue to have these limitations with rewards programs. And what makes it also more limiting is the issuer will decide where you can redeem it, right? We call it a walled garden. They tell you that you could only redeem it for these functions and so on. But now we're sitting here in 2022 where consumers continue to have more options, right? They continue to have more things at their disposal. And especially at a time where cryptocurrency is becoming more well understood within the broader consumer base, it really is a nice intersection because cryptocurrency is almost a perfect use case for rewards. So now, how has it shifted? Well, if cryptocurrency now becomes a reward you can earn, that gets rid of the limitations that were previously there. So now it's a reward that you own because it's on the blockchain. It's something that is easily transferable because it's something that you own and you can do whatever you want with it. It also has value outside of the ecosystem of the issuer because eventually we want Fly, our token, to be tradable on the exchanges. And so this really now creates value for the consumer where the consumer has full optionality with what they have earned as a reward. And we think that that is a paradigm shift in terms of how you think about loyalty, that the customer is not forced back into a particular walled garden of where they can spend it, but they now actually are rewarded in a good way where they've earned something that's theirs that they can hold on to, that potentially may even appreciate in value, and they could really use it for whatever they want. They could trade it for cash on the exchanges, or they could redeem it with any of our partners.
Mm-hmm. I read that white paper you have on your website, and there it says that there's going to be a limited number of coin issued pre-launch. But now I'm going to make a question that possibly all the advanced crypto users are gonna think is completely stupid question. But what prevents you from issuing more later on of this coin? What are the guarantees that there's going to be a stable number that's gonna have an effect, of course, on the value if there's a limited supply?
Yeah, well, the answer to that is actually written right into the code of the coin itself. So in the code on the that's available, the public can read. It will show that this is a one-time mint, and cryptographically, we are prevented from ever minting any additional coins to this.
So there's something in the code where you program it to have just a limited amount of units. I don't know if that's the right wording for it.
Yes.
But then you issue this amount, and you said that it's not going to be available immediately. You're going to be vesting it progressively over a period of time. How does this work? I mean, where is this coin in the meantime? So it's been issued, but it hasn't really been quote unquote released into the market. Again, I might be using words that are not the proper ones. Yeah, I'm just curious about the mechanism. Like, how is this created technically, and how is it stored in the meantime, and how is it released, and who's going to have access to that new supply that's going to be coming into the market at certain points in time?
Yeah, so technically, the ways these tokens are created is that they're minted, and they're minted on a chain. So if you're thinking of blockchain, this is minted on the Ethereum blockchain. This is an ERC20 token. So that means the contract. So you actually write a code. It's called the blockchain contract, and that contract is available for others to read and audit and scan and verify what it says. And then our contract is very simple. It just says that 100 billion of these tokens, are minted and can be ever be minted.
100 billion tokens.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
And then the value of those tokens is what's going to be varying over time. It's going to be depending on the amount of demand and the users it has. The value is what's going to be changing based on just like any market, right? Supply and demand.
That is true. Although for our airlines and our partners, initially we are all agreeing to set a minimum redemption value of 2 cents for each fly token. And so the the token's name is FlyCoin, but the ticker symbol is FLY, fly. And so we will be, our airlines will redeem it for 2 cents each, and our launch partners will also agree to always set the minimum floor of 2 cents for these tokens.
So what does this mean, that there's going to be a minimum floor? As a user, what are the implications?
Right. So as a user, that means regardless of what the trading value is on exchange, that we, our airlines and other launch partners will always redeem fly for at least 2 cents for fly or the higher of, right? So if the market value is higher, then they'll redeem at the higher market value. Okay.
And then you have, right now, you are already using FlyCoin for Raven, Alaska. Is that right? Or you're planning to do it shortly?
Well, so Raven, Alaska has already launched the use of their loyalty program that they are calling FlyCoin. But it's what they're handing out right now is not the tokenized FlyCoin. It's just a database of points. And then when we're very soon, what we'll do is we'll replace all those points with the actual FlyCoin token.
Mm-hmm. Because FlyCoin, you say on the website, it's technically, legally, it's managed by Raven, right? So Raven is the entity?
No, it's actually FlyCoin. Raven is just one of the customers.
Okay.
But thank you for clarifying that, because that's actually sometimes that's a confusing element for people. FlyCoin Inc. is a separate entity. Raven is just one of our customers. Okay. And to answer your prior question in terms of who holds the token, it's really the FlyCoin entity. And as our customers, whether through our partners or through Raven or the Pacific or the other travel hospitality partners, as our customers earn it, then that's essentially when it gets distributed and leaves in a way kind of our ownership into the ownership of our customers.
Okay. And as a traveler, let's say I'm just a regular traveler. I fly on Northern Pacific, and I'm entitled to get a number of tokens, I guess, for having flown a sector with the airline. Is this how it's going to work? Just like a regular loyalty program where you earn miles based on a number of flights that you make, or is going to have
exactly. I think that's the best way to think about it. That for the most part, the way you earn rewards is not going to change. And the only thing that's different is instead of earning your points, you're going to earn an equivalent dollar amount of Fly, the actual token. So that's probably the best way to think about it, where nothing has really changed except instead of earning, let's say you're flying on Lenny Moon Airlines and you typically earn a Lenny Moon point, now you're going to be just earning Fly.
And what's going to be let's say the user interface of this? If I am just a regular traveler, that I'm not blockchain knowledgeable, how I'm going to manage this on a personal level, how I'm going to know, what sort of tokens I have and how I can use them at the practical level, how people are going to interact with this coin, because one of the main criticism maybe of blockchain and cryptocurrencies that it's still kind of quote unquote very geeky, and like the normal user can be hard to understand how to use it and how to manage it.
Well, first, I'm glad that you asked that question, because that's a key point that we want out there is really, you don't have to be crypto savvy to actually interact with this. You can almost look at it just as a reward program itself, a reward point. And so similar to the way that you currently earn your rewards, you would log in to whether it's that partner website or ideally a FlyCoin website, you can see your entire balance. Now, where it becomes a little bit more quote unquote crypto is you can start transferring it if you want to a wallet, to a crypto wallet. And from there, ideally, you could trade. But up until that point, you'd be interacting with that in a very similar way that you are currently interacting with your rewards programs.
And will I have to sign up? Is it going to be opt-in, or every passenger is going to be allocated a number of tokens? How is it going to work in terms of registration or sign up?
Yeah, so I mean, that's going to depend on each partner. But for example, for Raven Alaska customers, they are already earning. Whenever they fly, they earn, I think, 7 cents worth of FlyCoin for every mile they fly, and that's put into their account. They can use that those flies towards future flights. Actually, many of them already are. They're already in the hands of about 250,000 users today. Almost $7 million worth of fly tokens have been distributed to Raven Alaska customers, and they're redeeming. They're using them to fly today. They don't have to know anything about cryptocurrency. They won't ever need to do any of the geeky stuff.
Okay. And what if let's say you've got a segment of passengers that are really crypto savvy and they transfer it to their wallets, can then transfer that coin, can trade that coin separately on their own on other platforms or with other users, or do they have this ability?
Yeah, they would have that. The more crypto savvy at that point, they can take that and actually transfer it to a crypto wallet and do whatever they want with it because it is theirs. I think a similar sort of kind of scenario would be for people that are currently earning rewards. They just log into that partner's account. Let's say it's United Airlines. They log into United Airlines. They see their status. They see their points. The more savvy people within points will go to like points.com on the back end and try to start transferring or trading or figuring out other ways to, in a way, arbitrage those points. In a similar way, I would kind of say that that's an example of somebody that's more crypto savvy would then take the points that are the fly, the token that they earn, and then take it to the next level and do some other things that they can through the exchanges or trading it.
And what happened, and again, that's maybe a question that might sound a bit stupid, but what happens is there a risk that you run out of tokens? You mentioned that the 100 billion figure, I think. Let's say you are super successful and you get millions of travelers flying with your airlines and with your partners. At what point do you run out of tokens? And then what does it happen? You need to buy them in the market, in the secondary market to keep offering them, or you need to stop offering them? What happens?
Yeah, so potentially we could face a situation where we would have to buy the tokens back from customers to keep offering it to new customers. You can imagine that scenario, but practically that probably won't happen. Practically what we'll probably realize, what we'll experience is more of an asymptotic curve. Whereas the closer we get to depleting the tokens, the more valuable that token becomes, and so the higher the price. Therefore, the smaller a portion of the token, smaller fraction of a token you would have to give out for the same value, and so you end up with kind of an asymptotic curve where you never get to depleting it, because as you get closer to running out, it gets more and more and more valuable.
Okay. Yeah. So
So imagine a world where if the token is, let's say right now it's worth 2 cents, and then so many years down the road it's worth $1, you'll be earning less fly 10 years from now because the exchange rate is much different.
You would be changing the, let's say, the amount of units that are given, but the value would remain constant, the amount of value that the passenger gets.
In a simplified example, yes, that's correct.
Mm-hmm. What about the tax implications of this? Because I read in some articles saying, I'm not sure how in the US this is treated from a tax point of view. Are coins and crypto coins and then frequent flyer miles, I don't know if they have a specific treatment with the IRS, they're considered money or not?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So rewards do fall under kind of a different sort of guidance for IRS purposes, and then crypto falls under different guidance for IRS purposes. The rules are still being kind of worked out. So this is something that we're keeping a very close pulse on to understand the tax implications, because right now things are still being, I think, a little bit vague in terms of the tax treatment for this. So to answer your question, it's something that we're very aware of, that we're keeping a close pulse on, but it's hard to speak on what the actual tax implications are right now.
Mm-hmm. One thing I wanted to speak about as well is you recently announced a new funding round for FlyCoin, a $33 million funding round. What can you tell me about this? Who are the new investors, and what are these $33 million going to be invested in?
Yeah, so it was a very exciting announcement for us to come out with a significant seed raise of a little over $33 million. In terms of our investor base includes some high net worth individuals, people that are tech entrepreneurs, as well as others that own significant properties, whether it's in sports teams or other hotel and wine properties. So that's exciting because that provides some additional partnerships as well. We do have other institutional VCs, some actual funds as investors too, which provides additional validation in the belief from an institutional level of what we are building at FlyCoin. In terms of the proceeds, as you discussed a little bit earlier, some of it will be used as an intercompany loan to fund a portion of Northern Pacific's build out, but it's also the remaining proceeds will be used to build out the FlyCoin team, which includes not only resources, personnel, engineers. This sort of company needs a lot of good developers, engineers. So if anybody's listening to this podcast and wants to work for FlyCoin, please let us know.
We can put a link to your website career, if there's a career section, so that people can apply.
Yeah, we will we'll do that and follow up with you. They will then be used to build out the technology platform, the solution of working with our partners, as well as a solution for the end customer, meaning those that actually earn Fly, working to build the app and the website and all the functionality that's needed in order to, create a cryptocurrency and eventually really a fintech company. That's what we're aggressively building out now. We've already had several hires on the engineering side and continuing to hire on the product development as well. So it's an exciting time for growth. We're excited to now build what we're doing. The other portion is we're also securing partnerships, additional partnerships beyond Raven and Northern Pacific.
Yeah, actually, that was my next question. Is what sort of partnerships are you seeking at this point in time? Because that's an important part as well of the expansion from what I read in your website. That's
correct. Building the partnerships is extremely important in building out what we like to say is the FlyCoin ecosystem, because we really want to get this distributed as widely as possible, as well as increase the utility of it, because the more partners you have, the more opportunities there are for people to earn and redeem. In addition to, once we're tradable, that provides additional utility. So though we can't necessarily name the discussions that we're currently in, it's companies in the broader travel hospitality space, which would include other airlines, hotel companies, and other ancillary sectors that are related to travel hospitality, whether it's food and beverage, wine companies, and so on. So we're in kind of very final phases of some of these wonderful discussions, which would really be beneficial to those that are earning Fly, because it provides an opportunity for them to have additional utility, other places that they can earn and redeem. But the other reason why it's important is it creates additional value for the token itself.
Mm-hmm. Where are you physically located? In California or somewhere else?
Yeah, so we are, the physical office is headquartered in the Los Angeles metro area,
Uh-huh.
In an area called Pomona, which is a little bit east.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that given our ties, we have operational presence in LA and the LA area, and really all throughout the US. We do have a big remote employee base.
Yeah.
I
was guessing so.
That's important. Yeah, that's important for hiring really top level developers and engineers.
Okay, so you are recruiting not just in the LA area, but just remote as well from
Absolutely.
Okay,
all over the US.
That's an important point for people that might be considering. And so basically you described the status you are in. What are the next milestones that we can expect? Any major milestones?
Yeah, I'll just mention a few. So some of the milestones are we will be over the next few months coming out with announcements in terms of additional partnerships, which should excite our community because that's each one is in a way a distribution channel. We will also we're working toward a path toward tradability on the exchanges, the crypto exchanges as well, which will also be some key milestones because then that provides that starts providing a market value for the actual token. So those are some of the more simplified version of what the milestones would be.
Are there going to be possibilities to exchange that with, let's say, rewards from non-crypto loyalty programs? From, let's say, there's going to be like an exchange rate between FlyCoin and, I don't know, American Airlines miles or whatever, like American Express or another travel operator that has a traditional loyalty program.
So Miguel, you should be part of our strategy discussions because you're hitting topics that we talk internally. So to answer your question long term, we are thinking through that actually right now. I think in the more immediate term, it would be there would be a couple steps. Like you would take Fly, exchange for cash fiat, and then maybe buy points separately. But we are thinking through what it would take to do that more directly.
Mm-hmm. I guess it's complicated to manage all of this from a technical point of view.
That's
I think
correct.
Pretty much FlyCoin is ready or almost to go live. Do you have a time frame for when it's going to be fully operational, fully active, and tradable?
Yeah, so I think that it's going to still be in phases. In the coming weeks, we are going to provide the functionality where it's going to be tokenized, meaning we can actually transfer the token into people's crypto wallets. And so that'll be, I would say, the first phase. The tradability is something that is a full process with the various crypto exchanges. So for that, it's been an ongoing back and forth and dialogue, as well as processes and protocol that we're going through. So we can't give a specific timing on that, but we're targeting that it'll be within the next 4 to 6 months, potentially earlier. But that's the current timeline and the roadmap on that.
And what about the Raven passengers that you said are already being entitled to FlyCoin? What are they going to? How are they getting this coin, these tokens? Are they have some escrow account where it's deposited in the meantime, or how does it work?
Yeah, so right now it's just being tracked, in its internal database, like a reward point with the airline. Once we tokenize them, we will I guess in the terminology of the cryptocurrencies, we'll airdrop them into their accounts.
Okay.
And in that way they'll have access to them.
So that's people that have the current Raven loyalty program.
That's correct.
Okay, great. So people that want to learn more about FlyCoin, where should they go? Yeah,
for now you can visit our website. At www.flycoin.org.
Yeah, that's very important. That's very important because if you Google FlyCoin, there's a flycoin.com, I think, or flycoin.net. That is a different company. I think they do terminal, like ATM terminal, something like that. So that's a different company. The FlyCoin we're talking about here is flycoin.org.
You're one step ahead of me. Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you.
I was just going to clarify that as well. So make sure you go to flycoin.org. And on the website, you can learn a little bit more. And we're going to continue to refresh our website, but also it has links to our social media channels that are more crypto focused, but I think will be very interesting for people to follow and to learn. So check out the website. Feel free to follow our Twitter account, which is meant earlier on for our initial crypto community, but I think it'll provide a lot of people a good sense of the direction that we're moving toward.
Excellent. And before closing today's conversation, I just wanted to ask you about the other airline projects that we mentioned earlier. Northern Pacific Airways, I had the chance to be at the great event you had in San Bernardino presenting the first aircraft and delivery. Is there already a time frame for the launch? Has there been any news in that front?
Yeah, so we're still on track, hoping to launch this year. Mm-hmm. And so beginning our inaugural flights later this year. In the meantime, we're busy acquiring and preparing additional aircraft like the one you saw in San Bernardino.
Yeah. And Raven, you relaunch an Alaskan brand. It's not exactly the previous one because it's just part of the fleet, I think, that you kept. But you are just operating normally, I guess, and connecting different Alaskan destinations with Anchorage.
That's right. Raven, Alaska is doing well. It's serving 14 different communities in the state of Alaska. Yes, 1-4. Uh-huh. And it's a crucial part of the transportation infrastructure for the state, and we're glad to be part of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, the listeners cannot see it, but we are talking on Zoom, and behind you have a very nice photo of a Raven hangar with all the planes, well, not all the planes, but a significant portion of the fleet there. Sure. So it's a magnificent view. And finally, Float, is it coming back?
Well, our hope is to bring Float back when the timing is right. Obviously, it's still not the right time right now during the pandemic, but Rob McKinney, our CEO, keeps talking about potentially a 2023 date to bring Float shuttle back, and so we'll see. We'll see how how the economy shifts and how things develop.
That's going to be an interesting one. I'm not sure if there are any other cases of airlines that are serving just like a big metro area. I mean, Southern California, but still, I mean, it's mainly LA. I don't know if you get all the way to San Diego or something like that, but that's quite an interesting concept.
Yeah.
All right. So, well, thank you very much. It's been very interesting to learn about all these different projects that you are managing. And FlyCoin, definitely, it's something that I will be following because I think it's at the intersection of two major trends that I'm trying to be on top of. One, obviously, I'm monitoring the airline industry, but also getting more and more interested by the day on everything that's going on in the crypto world. Obviously, nowadays it's it's hot. So yeah.
Well, Miguel, thank you for having us. This was fun, and you really provide a nice and calm, relaxing atmosphere to speak. So we look forward to hearing more podcasts from you, but also being invited back at some point to speak more about whether it's Northern Pacific, Raven, or FlyCoin.
Sure. Yeah, that would be a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time today, and all the best with your projects.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before you go, and if you like this podcast, a quick reminder that it would be absolutely great if you could please give it a rating on Apple, Spotify, or whichever platform you're using, or recommend it to a friend or whomever might be interested. Thank you very much, and see you soon.